The world was still healing from the wounds of the Second World War when something strange occurred during the winter of 1952, an event governments buried so deeply that even today it is spoken only in whispers. It started with an emergency radio transmission intercepted by a U.S. Navy listening station in Greenland, a signal that should have been impossible. The message was broken, fading in and out through heavy static, but every man in that room heard it clearly. We are freezing. The experiment failed. They are alive under the ice. And then complete silence. The embedded coordinates pointed deep into Antarctica, directly to the rumored Nazi research facility known as Station 211, a base officially reported destroyed in 1945 and buried under shifting glaciers. According to recorded history, everyone inside had died, and no known technology could transmit from that location, but the voice on the radio sounded terrified and real. U.S. officials acted immediately. The incident was classified, equipment was seized, and every witness was sworn to secrecy. Yet the following night, something even more disturbing happened. The very operator who took the transmission was found dead in his bunk, his body frozen solid as if he had been exposed to a blizzard, ice covering his eyes and fingertips, while the room itself was warm. Doctors called it a heart attack, but the crew whispered another name: the Iceman. Rumors resurfaced of a secret Nazi project in the final months of the war, a horrifying experiment designed to create soldiers who could survive extreme cold using ancient organisms believed to exist deep beneath Antarctica's ice. Hitler had named it Operation Nachtgeist, Night Spirit, and some believed the experiment succeeded. If the transmission was real, then whatever they created not only survived the war, but evolved. Within days, an elite recovery team known as Unit GR23 was formed. 12 of the best Arctic specialists in existence sent to investigate the coordinates and recover survivors or documents. Most of them never returned. Months later, one man stumbled out of the ice, blind, frostbitten, delirious, unable to remember his own name. Before dying, he whispered the final words that still haunt anyone who hears them: "They are not human anymore." And that was the beginning of the nightmare. The mission to Antarctica began quietly, hidden behind the official story of a routine scientific survey. But everyone inside Unit GR23 understood there was nothing routine about what they were walking into. Their transport aircraft, a heavily modified C-124 Globemaster, left from a remote airstrip under strict radio silence, carrying specialized thermal gear, prototype drilling equipment, and sealed crates whose contents only the commanding officer, Major Harris, was allowed to access. The team consisted of 12 men: engineers, survival experts, a radio analyst, a glaciologist, and one man who did not appear anywhere in military records, silent figure named Dr. Victor Kruger, whose cold stare and German accent raised questions no one dared ask. As they flew deeper into the frozen world, tension thickened inside the aircraft. Strange interference began affecting their instruments. Temperature gauges fluctuated wildly, and a deep, pulsing hum, like a heartbeat, echoed faintly through the metal hull, though no source could be found. When they reached the coordinates linked to the mysterious transmission, thick clouds swallowed the aircraft, and the navigation systems suddenly malfunctioned, forcing the pilots to descend blindly through violent winds. Below them stretched an endless white desert, but then, like a wound carved into the earth, a massive fissure appeared in an impossible canyon, splitting the ice in geometric precision, as if cut by a machine. Major Harris ordered the team to prepare for landing, and the Globemaster touched down on a rough ice field, barely large enough to hold it, skidding dangerously before coming to a halt. The moment the engines shut down, an unnatural silence enveloped them. Not the silence of nature, but something deeper, heavier, as if the world itself were holding its breath. They unloaded their gear and set up a temporary base. And only then did they realize the crack in the ice released a steady column of warm mist rising into the air heat coming from deep underground, where no heat should exist. As night fell, the temperature plummeted to levels that could kill a man in minutes. Yet the warm breath of the earth continued to rise from the fissure, carrying a rotten metallic smell that burned their throats. The radio operator attempted to make contact with headquarters, but the speakers erupted with the same broken message from Station 211. This time clearer, as if someone or something was speaking directly to them. Stay away. They see you. They are awake. The frequency spiked and the radio exploded into sparks, throwing the operator to the ground. That night, while the men took turns on watch, distant shapes began appearing on the ridge above them, figures standing unnaturally still in the blizzard. Silhouettes frozen in place like statues carved from darkness. They did not move, they did not speak, they only watched. Major Harris raised his rifle, but Dr. Kruger stopped him, whispering in a voice trembling with fear, "Do not shoot." They were human once. And in that moment, every man understood the terrible truth. They were not alone on the ice. The following morning, a deadly calm settled over the camp, the wind dropping so suddenly it felt unnatural, as if the storm itself had been frightened away. The men of Unit GR3 emerged from their tents to find the ridge where the figures had stood completely empty, with no footprints, no tracks, and no sign that anything had ever been there. Major Harris ordered an immediate survey of the fissure, determined to locate the entrance to Station 211, while 2 soldiers remained behind to repair the destroyed radio equipment. As they approached the edge, the scale of the chasm stunned them, a perfectly symmetrical opening descending vertically into darkness, its walls polished smooth like metal rather than carved by nature. Steam continued to rise from the depths below, thick and warm, carrying with it a deep mechanical vibration that made the ice tremble beneath their boots. Using industrial winches, they began lowering a camera rig into the abyss. And as the lens illuminated the darkness, the men stared in disbelief. Hundreds of feet below, buried beneath centuries of ice, was a colossal circular structure, clearly artificial, unmistakably constructed, and still partially powered. It looked like a massive steel door embedded into the glacier, engraved with the unmistakable symbol of the Black Sun, the insignia of the Nazi occult division. As they watched, something moved across the camera view, something fast, pale, and disturbingly human-shaped. The screen filled with static, and then the feed went black. Moments later, a scream echoed from the camp behind them. When they sprinted back, they found the radio tent torn open, its fabric shredded as if clawed by enormous hands. The 2 men left behind were gone. No blood, no footprints, only deep gouges melted into the snow like hot metal had cut through it. Panic rippled through the team, and several demanded immediate evacuation. But Dr. Kruger stepped forward, his voice cold and trembling as he revealed the truth he had hidden since the beginning. Station 211, he explained, was never a simple research base. It was the headquarters of Hitler's most secret program, one designed to harness something ancient found trapped beneath the Antarctic ice. The Nazis believed the organism was not from Earth, but something far older, capable of rewriting human biology and creating soldiers immune to cold, pain, and fear. But the experiment spiraled out of control. The subjects transformed, losing all trace of humanity and becoming violent, mindless predators bound to the heat source deep below. When the war ended, the facility was sealed and abandoned, with the survivors entombed under ice to contain the infection. The transmission the Navy intercepted was never a call for rescue, it was a warning. And now, by reopening the site, they had awakened what was meant to stay buried. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shuddered violently, cracks racing outward from the fissure like lightning. The ice groaned and split open, and from the darkness below rose a deafening roar, something alive, something massive, something furious. And in that instant, every man understood. Escape was no longer an option. Chaos erupted as the roar from the depths reverberated through the ice like thunder, shaking the ground so violently that several men fell to their knees. The fissure widened with a sharp, explosive crack, sending shards of ice flying through the air like razor blades, slicing through tents and equipment. The temperature around them plummeted so fast, their breath froze instantly into crystals that shimmered like glass. Major Harris shouted orders to fall back toward the aircraft, but before they could move, a massive column of steam burst upward from the chasm, blinding everyone in a dense white cloud. Through the haze, the men heard a sickening sound like bones grinding together, followed by the rapid patter of footsteps circling them in the snow. The shapes from the ridge had returned, moving with unnatural speed, flickering in and out of sight between the swirling mist. The soldiers raised their rifles and fired blindly into the whiteout, muzzle flashes lighting up twisted silhouettes that darted closer with every second. One of the creatures lunged from the fog, tackling Corporal Jensen to the ground. Its pale skin stretched tight over an elongated skull, its mouth splitting open far wider than anything human as it released a scream that echoed like metal scraping across stone. The others swarmed forward, moving on twisted limbs, their bodies warped and frozen, yet impossibly strong. Bullets tore chunks of flesh from their bodies, but instead of blood, a thick, black, tar-like substance spilled into the snow, steaming violently as if boiling from within. Sergeant Cole threw a thermal flare directly at one of them, and as the bright flame struck its skin, the creature recoiled violently, shrieking and stumbling backward as its flesh blistered and cracked. Fire, they realized heat, was the only thing that hurt them. Fall back to the plane now. Major Harris roared, pulling Cole to his feet and firing a flare gun into the ground to create a barrier of flame. The team sprinted through the smoke, dragging the wounded and praying their ammunition would last. The Globemaster loomed ahead like a lifeboat in a storm, its metal skin glistening with frost, its engines already warming as the pilots desperately attempted to power up for takeoff. But before they could reach it, the ground beneath them split again, a massive fracture racing directly toward the aircraft. With a deafening crunch, the ice collapsed and half the landing strip dropped away into a bottomless pit. The Globemaster tilted dangerously, one wing dipping into the abyss, engines screaming before abruptly choking and dying. Their only escape was gone. The roar from below grew louder, shaking the very air. Dr. Kruger looked into the fissure, his face white with terror, and whispered, "It's awake. We freed it." And then something enormous began to rise from the darkness beneath the ice. The monstrous form emerging from the depths was unlike anything the men had ever seen, towering over 20 feet tall. Its skin pale and translucent, revealing twisted veins glowing faintly with an unnatural blue light beneath the surface. Its eyes burned with a cold fire, empty yet filled with malice, and massive claws scraped against the icy walls of the fissure as it pulled itself upward. The creature's breath steamed in the frigid air as it roared, a sound that shattered the silence and sent echoes bouncing off the frozen cliffs. Panic gripped the remaining soldiers as they scrambled to reload and prepare for the impossible battle ahead. Major Harris barked orders, his voice cutting through the chaos as he tried to organize a defense. But the creature was relentless. It swiped at the men with terrifying speed, tearing through snow and steel alike. One by one, soldiers fell, their screams swallowed by the howling wind. Dr. Kruger, pale and trembling, revealed the darkest secret of Operation Nachtgeist. The creature was the culmination of years of twisted Nazi experimentation, merging human DNA with that of the ancient organisms buried beneath the ice, creating a hybrid predator designed to survive and dominate. As the creature advanced, the team's only hope was to retreat to the damaged Globemaster. where a handful of men clambered aboard and attempted to restart the crippled engines. The frozen giant smashed one wing against the ice, causing the aircraft to shudder violently, but the pilots fought to bring it back upright. In the final moments before takeoff, Major Harris ordered a desperate assault, throwing every grenade and flare into the creature's path in a last bid to slow it down. Explosions rocked the icy wasteland, lighting the night with fire and smoke. But the creature absorbed the blasts with a terrifying resilience, its body regenerating faster than the men could damage it. As the engines roared to life, the remaining survivors barely escaped the collapsing ice, the fissure swallowing everything behind them in a thunderous roar. Above the storm, the aircraft climbed into the dark Antarctic sky, carrying with it the horrors they had unearthed. But the nightmare was far from over. The creature, wounded but alive, still roamed beneath the ice, waiting for its next chance to rise. As the Globemaster soared above the frozen wasteland, the survivors huddled inside, breaths ragged and faces pale from shock and frostbite. The deafening roar of the engines barely masked the pounding silence of dread that settled over them. Major Harris sat slumped against the cold metal wall, clutching a blood-stained map that marked a nightmare they had barely escaped. Dr. Kruger, his hands trembling, revealed more chilling truths about Operation Nachtgeist. How the Nazi scientists had believed they could control the ancient power beneath the ice by merging it with human DNA, but instead created something uncontrollable, something that rejected humanity itself. The creature was only the first, a prototype of a dark new evolution meant to serve as an unstoppable weapon in Hitler's final gambit. Outside, the storm raged on, and the radio crackled faintly with distorted static snatches of the eerie messages from Station 211 still trying to break through. The men realized that the infection was not confined to the ice. It was spreading through the equipment, the signals, even the very air they breathed. The plane's navigation systems flickered, and a ghostly transmission began to override the radio channels, whispering warnings in a distorted voice. They are coming. The ice is alive. Panic surged again as one crew member reported strange shadows passing over the fuselage. Though nothing could be seen through the thick ice, crystals clinging to the windows. The survivors debated their next move, but the truth was clear: no rescue would come. No help awaited them in the endless Antarctic void. Their mission had failed, and they were trapped between a frozen hell below and an unknown terror creeping ever closer. Dr. Kruger stared into the darkness beyond the cockpit, his face etched with guilt and fear. The Third Reich was never finished, he whispered. They left behind evil we can't comprehend. As the aircraft turned toward civilization, carrying with it the secrets and horrors of Station 211, the men knew one thing: the nightmare beneath the ice was far from over, and the world would soon pay the price. Months after the harrowing escape from Antarctica, the sole survivor of Unit GR3 was found wandering near a remote Alaskan research outpost, blind, frostbitten, and speaking in fragmented whispers about the horrors beneath the ice. His body was ravaged by cold, his eyes milky white, and his mind shattered by the memories he barely understood. Authorities kept him under strict quarantine, fearing contamination. But the man's fragmented story ignited a firestorm of conspiracy, theories, and secret investigations within government circles. Documents recovered from the wreckage suggested the existence of other hidden Nazi facilities scattered across the polar regions, all tied to the shadowy Operation Nachtgeist. Scientists speculated that the ancient organisms the Nazis had unearthed were part of a larger, dormant ecosystem buried beneath the ice, waiting for conditions to awaken them once more. Meanwhile, strange phenomena began occurring worldwide: unexplained power outages, fleeting shadows in the Arctic twilight, and radio signals picking up distorted voices repeating the chilling words: "They are coming. The ice is alive." A covert task force was formed to monitor these events, But with each passing day, the boundary between myth and reality blurred. The survivor, whose name was never fully revealed, remained hospitalized. His ravings hinting at a growing infection spreading through his body, part human, part something else. As researchers delved deeper, they uncovered cryptic notes from Dr. Kruger, hidden among classified files, warning of a new dawn where the ancient ice would reclaim the world. The global community remained unaware of the ticking time bomb beneath the polar ice caps. And as the planet warmed, melting centuries-old glaciers, the darkness imprisoned beneath began to stir. The question haunting every secret meeting was clear. What would awaken first, the ice or the evil trapped beneath it? In secret laboratories hidden beneath government facilities, top scientists and military officials raced against time to understand the survivor's infection, analyzing blood samples that glowed faintly with an otherworldly blue hue and displayed properties unlike anything seen before. The infection did not behave like any known virus or bacteria. Instead, it seemed to alter the host's cellular structure, rewriting DNA strands and enhancing physical resilience while eroding memories and sanity. As days passed, several researchers began to show signs of fatigue and strange behavior withdrawal, hallucinations, and an obsession with the polar regions, prompting some to suspect the infection was spreading beyond the patient. Meanwhile, classified satellite images revealed unsettling shifts beneath the polar ice caps, vast fissures opening unexpectedly, strange heat signatures, and unnatural movements detected miles below the surface. In one remote Arctic outpost, soldiers reported hearing faint voices carried on the wind, whispers warning of an ancient force awakening. Amidst this growing unease, a shadowy figure known only as the Architect emerged, orchestrating covert missions to retrieve lost Nazi technology scattered across the globe. Rumors claimed this individual sought to harness the dark power of Operation Nachtgeist for his own ends, unleashing forces beyond human control. The media remained oblivious, fed with official denials and carefully curated stories, while the world unknowingly edged closer to an awakening nightmare. Back in the quarantine ward, the survivor's condition worsened. His skin took on a pale translucence, veins pulsing with eerie blue light. As he muttered cryptic warnings about creatures beneath the ice beings, no longer bound by time or death. Scientists documented his rapid deterioration but failed to halt the transformation. With every passing hour, the line between man and monster blurred, and those closest to the patient began to question if humanity itself was under threat. The chilling question hung in the air. Could the darkness buried beneath the ice spread beyond the frozen wastelands and consume the world? As the infection spread silently among the researchers and military personnel, paranoia gripped the secret facility like a winter frost. Doors were locked tight, surveillance cameras scanned every corner, and every stranger was viewed as a potential threat. The survivors' ramblings became increasingly coherent, yet more terrifying. Speaking of a hidden cult that had once worshipped the ancient entities beneath the ice, a group known as the Schwarz Sonne, or Black Suna name, whispered in forgotten Nazi occult circles. According to the survivor, these cultists believed that awakening the creatures would bring about a new world order, one ruled by cold darkness and eternal winter. The facility's head scientist, Dr. Elise Wagner, uncovered a series of encrypted journals left by Dr. Kruger, revealing rituals and experiments that blurred the lines between science and sorcery. As more staff fell ill or disappeared, Wagner realized that containment was failing, and the infection was evolving. No longer confined to flesh and blood, but spreading into the very technology and machines around them. One night, the power suddenly failed, plunging the complex into darkness as emergency lights flickered weakly. Alarms sounded and shadowy figures were spotted moving silently through the corridors, half human, half creatures born from the failed experiments, now hunting their creators. Panic erupted as survivors scrambled for safety. But the labyrinthine halls twisted and shifted as if the building itself was alive. echoing the ancient power beneath the ice. Dr. Wagner led a small group toward an escape tunnel. But as they reached the exit, a monstrous silhouette blocked their path, an enormous hybrid, towering and covered in frost, eyes glowing with blue fire. In that moment, Wagner understood the full horror. Operation Nachtgeist had never truly ended. The evil beneath the ice was no longer trapped, and the nightmare was spreading beyond the frozen wastelands, threatening to engulf the world in cold darkness.
The world outside remained oblivious to the terror unfolding beneath the ice, but strange phenomena began to ripple across the globe. Glaciers melting faster than ever, mysterious disappearances in polar regions, and cryptic signals detected by international satellites. Intelligence agencies quietly exchanged information about a rising threat they called the Cold Shadow, an invisible force spreading cold and darkness like a disease. Meanwhile, Dr. Elise Wagner's last radio transmission before the facility's destruction warned of a spreading infection that could not be contained by walls or science alone. As governments scrambled to respond, a secret coalition of scientists and soldiers formed, determined to uncover the truth behind Operation Nachtgeist and stop the ancient evil before it broke free entirely. Using recovered Nazi technology and classified research, they traced the epicenter to Antarctica's melting ice fields, where deep fissures now breathe heat, and life expeditions were launched under tight secrecy, armed with experimental weapons designed to combat cold-resistant creatures. But every team sent returned damaged or not at all, their records filled with warnings of unnatural storms and ghostly figures stalking the frozen wastes. Among those who survived was a young scientist named Lena Vogel, haunted by dreams of blue fire and icy eyes, compelled by an unknown force to return to the very place where the nightmare began. As she prepared to lead the next expedition, Lena uncovered a hidden journal belonging to Dr. Kruger, containing a cryptic map and a desperate plea. To stop the darkness, we must understand the ice, its heart, and the evil beneath. With the fate of the world hanging in the balance, Lena and her team descended once more into the frozen abyss, unaware of the horrors waiting beneath the ice, and that the greatest evil was still watching, waiting, and hungry. As Lena Vogel and her team ventured deeper into Antarctica's frozen wasteland, the air grew colder and heavier with an unnatural stillness that seemed to press against their very souls. Their journey followed the cryptic map left by Dr. Kruger, leading them toward a vast cavern hidden beneath layers of ice and snow, where the very air shimmered with an eerie blue light. The team's equipment began malfunctioning. Compasses spun wildly, radios emitted garbled voices, and night vision cameras captured fleeting shadows that vanished as quickly as they appeared. Lena's dreams grew more vivid, filled with visions of towering figures, cloaked in frost, and eyes burning with cold fire. Guiding her steps with silent whispers, as they descended into the cavern, the temperature paradoxically rose, warmth emanating from cracks in the ice like the breath of a sleeping beast. The walls were lined with strange symbols and ancient runes, glowing faintly beneath the surface, telling a forgotten story of a power older than humanity itself, an entity trapped beneath the ice long before the rise of civilizations, waiting to reclaim its frozen throne. The team's scientists debated the origins of the symbols, suspecting a connection to a lost pre-Ice Age civilization and the dark forces the Nazis had sought to awaken. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the cavern, and the ground trembled beneath their feet as the ice began to crack open, revealing a vast chamber filled with relics of the past. Mechanical devices entwined with organic material, frozen corpses twisted in unnatural poses, and pools of black liquid that seemed to pulse with life. Lena's heart pounded as she realized they had found the very heart of Operation Nachtgeist, a place where science and nightmare intertwined. But their presence had awakened something ancient and hungry. From the shadows, a figure emerged, tall, pale, and crowned with shards of ice like a twisted king of the frozen abyss. Its eyes glowed with the cold fire Lena had seen in her dreams, and its voice echoed in their minds, promising the end of warmth, life, and light. The battle for the soul of the world had begun beneath the ice, and Lena understood that to survive, They would have to face the evil the Nazis unleashed and the darkness buried deep within the frozen earth itself. The team's weapons felt useless against the towering ice entity, whose very presence warped the cold air around them into biting shards of frost that pierced their skin and shattered their courage. Lena tried to rally her team, but one by one they fell to the creature's chilling touch, frozen in place like statues of ice before shattering into crystalline fragments. Desperation clawed at her as she recalled the journals of Dr. Kruger, which hinted at a weakness buried deep within the heart of the frozen abyss. An ancient artifact said to control the power of the ice itself. Navigating the labyrinthine cavern with dwindling breath and fading hope, Lena fought through blizzards of icy shards and spectral illusions that sought to break her mind. The oppressive silence was broken only by the distant crack of ice and the haunting whispers of forgotten souls trapped between life and death. At last, in a hidden chamber beneath layers of glacial stone, she found the artifact, a crystalline orb glowing with warm amber light, pulsing gently like a heartbeat amid the endless cold. As she grasped it, visions flooded her mind, images of ancient rituals, sacrifices made to bind the entity, and warnings carved into the orb's surface in a language older than time. The Ice King's voice thundered through the cavern, promising oblivion if she dared to defy it. But Lena raised the orb high, its warmth spreading like a wave, melting the frost and shattering the creature's hold. The cavern trembled violently as the ice began to collapse, and Lena sprinted toward the surface, the orb's light guiding her through the darkness. Behind her, the creature's furious roar echoed through the cracks as it was forced back into the abyss, sealed once more beneath the ice. Emerging into the freezing Antarctic night, Lena felt the weight of victory and loss. She had won a battle but knew the war was far from over. The ancient evil remained trapped, but the world had glimpsed the darkness beneath the ice, and the fragile line between survival and destruction had never been thinner. The world outside Antarctica moved on, unaware of the near catastrophe that had unfolded beneath the ice. But Lena Vogel returned as a changed woman, haunted by visions of the ancient evil and burdened with knowledge that no one was prepared to face. Despite her warnings, governments dismissed her claims as delusions born of trauma, and the classified reports were buried deep within secret archives. Yet strange incidents continued to ripple across the globe. Inexplicable cold waves that defied meteorological science, satellite images showing shifting ice formations, and unexplained disappearances in remote polar research stations. Lena found herself stalked by shadowy organizations intent on silencing her, and whispers of a resurging cult calling themselves the Black Sun spread through underground networks. Determined to prevent another disaster, she gathered a small group of trusted allies, scientists, former soldiers, and conspiracy theorists, who believed in the hidden truth. Together, they worked to uncover lost Nazi technology, rumored to control the power beneath the ice, hoping to use it as a shield against the darkness. But their efforts attracted dangerous attention, and as they delved deeper, it became clear that the ancient evil was awakening in multiple locations, feeding on the melting glaciers and growing stronger. The line between myth and reality blurred as reports emerged of monstrous figures seen stalking the shadows of northern towns and frozen bodies discovered with horrifying signs of unnatural violence. Lena realized that the battle was no longer confined to Antarctica. It had come to the world's doorstep, and as the cold darkness spread, she vowed to fight until her last breath, knowing that the fate of humanity depended on stopping the evil before it could rise again. As Lena and her team raced against time to piece together the secrets of the Nazi occult technology, they uncovered a hidden network of underground bunkers scattered across the northern hemisphere, forgotten relics from a dark era, filled with cryptic machinery and inscriptions warning of the eternal frost. Each bunker contained fragments of an ancient energy source, rumored to be the key to controlling the ice's malevolent power. Traveling from icy fjords to abandoned mines, the team faced increasing resistance from shadowy enemies determined to stop them. At any cost, paranoia seeped into their ranks as mysterious attacks and disappearances raised the chilling possibility of infiltration. Meanwhile, global weather patterns worsened, with freak blizzards and unseasonal freezes devastating cities and crops. Signs that the cold darkness was spreading beyond the poles. One night, during a desperate mission to retrieve a device rumored to amplify the orb's power, Lena's group was ambushed near a remote Arctic research station by figures cloaked in black, their eyes glowing with icy fire. The ensuing battle was brutal and desperate, with Lena narrowly escaping thanks to the intervention of an unexpected ally, an ex-Nazi scientist who had turned against the cult, carrying vital knowledge of the ancient rituals and how to reverse the infection spread. But even with this new ally, the team knew the clock was ticking. The Black Sun cult was gathering strength, preparing to unleash the full power of Operation Nachtgeist upon the world. Lena's mission was clear: stop the cult, secure the technology, and prevent the cold darkness from consuming all life. Failure was no longer an option. The final confrontation unfolded beneath the aurora-lit skies of the Arctic Circle, where Lena and her allies faced the full fury of the Black Sun cult in a forgotten ice cathedral carved deep into the glacier. The air was thick with frost and ancient chants, as cultists wielding twisted relics and arcane weapons summoned icy storms that tore through the cavern like living blades. Lena clutched the crystalline orb tightly, its amber light the only warmth in the frozen darkness, and led the charge against the cult's monstrous guardians. Half-human creatures warped by the same ancient infection that had once plagued Station 211. The battle was brutal, with fire and ice clashing in blinding bursts of energy that shattered ice pillars and sent shards flying like deadly daggers. The cult's leader, a towering figure adorned in black robes and a crown of frozen spikes, revealed his plan to awaken the ultimate ice entity, a god of cold destruction that would plunge the world into eternal winter and darkness. Desperation fueled Lena's resolve as she fought through waves of enemies, pushing deeper into the cathedral's heart where the ritual was underway. In a final, desperate act, she raised the orb and unleashed its hidden power, a surge of warm light that shattered the cult's icy bonds and weakened the ancient evil's grip. As the glacier trembled and began to collapse around them, Lena and the survivors escaped into the blinding Arctic dawn, the first light breaking through the endless night. Though the immediate threat was vanquished, Lena knew the battle was far from over. The scars of Operation Nachtgeist would linger, and the darkness beneath the ice would wait patiently for its next chance.